Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables, the Oklahoma Sooners, continuing to work their way through fall camp. And we got to start this episode off with just a quick PSA. There's been some Oklahoma fans in the comment section that are frustrated with my lack of conversation around John Mateer. And I want to be very upfront about it. The lack of John Mateer talk that we've had over the last couple of weeks has zero to do with me not believing in John Mateer. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think John Mateer is one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the SEC, but in the country going into 2025. The reason that we haven't talked about John Mateer all that much is I think the bigger storyline for Oklahoma going into 2025 is, do we have enough around John Mateer? I have a total belief that John Mateer can be a difference maker for Oklahoma and will be a difference maker for Oklahoma. If we're talking about Oklahoma going 10-2 and making the college football playoffs, my concern is not John Mateer. My concern is the offensive line keeping John Mateer clean. My concern is the offensive line getting the run game going. My concern is, are we good enough at the pass catcher position? That is the conversation I want to dive into today, because you're hearing some intriguing things both up front on the offensive line, also with the wide receivers. I think we got a surprise starting freshman going into fall or going into 2025 emerging on the defensive side of the football. Although there's been some injuries that Oklahoma has had to deal with, the injuries to me, they don't concern me all that much. That is part of the course as you're in the dog days of fall camp. And a lot of the injuries that you've seen risen up for Oklahoma are, one, insignificant injuries, kind of load management injuries, I would say. But number two is some of the veteran guys. Like if Deion Burks misses a game or a practice or two in fall camp, or if Jaden Ott misses a practice or two in fall camp, I'm not all that concerned. I know they can play. They probably don't need the reps in fall camp. We just got to make sure they're right going into 2025. Don't let some of those smaller injuries distract us from, in my opinion, some really positive developments that we've gotten from Oklahoma thus far in fall camp. Fired up to get into them. Before we do, and as always, the Oklahoma fans, appreciate you guys. It's been really fun talking this football team during the offseason, and it's going to be very, very fun going into 2025. Many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan, so we got a week 2 matchup to talk plenty about as well. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, can we grow in confidence in the wide receiver play going into 2025? Now, a healthy Deion Burks, we talk about it all the time. Healthy Deion Burks is one of the better wide receivers in the SEC, at least in my opinion. And the thing that we haven't talked a lot about in regards to Deion Burks is how dynamite I think his fit is with the Ben Arbuckle offense. And what I mean by that is, look, Ben Arbuckle, he is a speed and space kind of offensive coordinator. He is a player's offensive coordinator. Ben Arbuckle, in terms of how he calls an offense, is going to be, who are my best football players, and how can I get my best football players the football in space and let them do the rest? Deion Burks was made to thrive in this Ben Arbuckle offense. So not only do I think Deion Burks is a dynamite football player himself, I think the fit with Ben Arbuckle is going to be really good. I would expect Deion Burks to get, 10 plus touches a game in a lot of different ways, because that's just the kind of offensive coordinator that Ben Arbuckle is. And I think that's one of the reasons why Ben Arbuckle is one of the best in the sport. He focuses on his players, and he wants to get his best players involved a lot every given Saturday. Isaiah Satang is the second guy we got to talk about. There's some underlying confidence that Giovanni Gibson can really be a dude once he's back healthy. But I think we're looking for that third wide receiver. I think we're looking for that fourth wide receiver. Isaiah Satang, although maybe not all the juice that Deion Burks has, it's pretty dang close. Like Isaiah Satang, when you give him the football in space, he can make some things happen. Now, what you want to hear with Isaiah Satang is, can we be a little bit more polished as a wide receiver? We know you're a playmaker. You can go up and make some circus catches. We know what you can do with the football in your hands. We've seen that on the tape at Arkansas. Can we be a little bit more refined as a pass catcher, which allows us to get Isaiah Satang a little bit more involved in the offense? That's kind of what we're hearing, especially with Giovanni Gibson not going through fall camp right now. Deion Burke sitting out a few fall camp practices. Isaiah Stan's kind of been the guy that is really working with John Mateer. That wide receiver quarterback combination to me intrigues me a lot going into 2025. The other thing I'll say is it just feels like it's a deeper room. I mean, you have a guy like Keontez Lewis that is starting to step up a little bit. You've heard really good things about Zion Kearney going into year two. Last year, Oklahoma had a talented wide receiver room. We were going into 2024 with like Nick Anderson, Deion Burks. That's really, really dang exciting. They got banged up and they didn't have any depth. They were forced to play some walk-ons. They were forced to play some true freshmen. I look at Oklahoma now and say we got more playmaking ability. Giovanni Gibson coming in, Isaiah Satane coming in, who both guys that were not necessarily the biggest names in the portal. They sound like both are going to be hits for Oklahoma. We got a lot of depth. Like we got a lot of different guys who can do some different things. To me, growing confidence that the pass catcher room for Oklahoma is going to be good enough going into 2025. Now, the second big storyline, look, if you can get these two questions figured out for Oklahoma, this team might go 10-2. Like this team might play in the college football playoffs. That's how good I think Oklahoma can be, but you got to answer those two glaring question marks. Talked about the wide receivers. Now we got to talk about the offensive line. This has been something that I've just been workshopping in my brain. I actually thought about it last night. I was just prepping this episode. Coach Bill B has such a great resume. And I feel like we go back to 2024 and look, that was a disaster. There's really no excuse for how bad Oklahoma was. And I know there were some injuries, but regardless of the injuries, that kind of offensive line, I think Bill B would be the first one to tell you they ain't no excuse for that. Should we be giving Bill B the benefit of the doubt? Although we still have question marks about the Oklahoma offensive line, last year was the enigma. Last year was the odd year out. Because you go back for the last decade plus, Bill B's been pumping out phenomenal offensive lines for this Oklahoma football team. And so, number one, I feel like we've stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt when he probably still deserves it. And then you look at this Oklahoma offensive line and say, the number one thing that stands out to me is there's a better feel of what your starting five is going to look like. Now, I think there's still some competitions that are taking place. Go back 12 months ago, we didn't have a dang clue 3 weeks out what this offensive line was going to look like. They didn't have a dang clue what this offensive line was going to look like on a weekly basis in 2024. Now, some of it had to do with injuries, but more importantly, just wasn't good enough. So you're kind of mixing and matching the five-man rotation, so to speak. Everything we hear out of fall camp is like, all right, Jacob Sexton is, routinely trotting out there with the first team offensive line at left tackle. Eddie Pierre-Louis sounds like he's putting a stranglehold on one of the guard spots. You got a really unique center battle between Troy Everett and Jake coming in from Stanford. Fabechi's, you're going to be your starting right guard. And it sounds like Derek Simmons, although dealing with an injury and I believe a concussion, has come in and won that right tackle job. We got a little bit more continuity in fall camp. We have a better feel of, hey, this is going to be our starting five. And we still have some position battles that are up for grabs. But we have a little bit more of a feel for what it might look like. And so then when we take the football field, especially week 2 against Michigan, these guys have been playing a lot together with the same people to the right and to their left. I think that matters a little bit. The second thing is there's just more players above the line. So it's a deeper offensive line unit. We're still trying to figure out, like, hey, we ain't going to know if Derek Simmons is an SEC caliber tackle until he takes the football field. We got options. We got more players that we seemingly trust to play quality football in the SEC. I firmly believe this offensive line, Oklahoma goes as far as the offensive line takes this program this year. That's not saying that Oklahoma needs to be the best offensive line in the country, because I don't think that's going to be the case. But if they can just be solid, maybe even above average, this team is really dangerous in 2025. And you're hearing that the depth's a little bit better. And I think you're hearing better things than you heard 12 months ago for Oklahoma leading into 2025. Defensive side of the football, we got to talk about it. And it's this storyline. See, I just said this like 3 times. This storyline started out in spring with Courtland Guillory. And it was like, hey, freshman that we might be able to count on going into the 2025. That's big, not necessarily because he was going to be a starter and playing 500 plus snaps as a true freshman. We needed the depth. Eli Bowen's working through an injury. Gentry Williams has struggled with injuries over the last couple of years. There weren't a ton of cornerbacks that we trusted on this roster from a depth standpoint. That slowly has changed into Courtland Guillory might start for Oklahoma at times in 2025, and he might be dang good going into the 2025 year. Now, what's so fascinating about Courtland, I went back and kind of studied him coming out of high school. He was not the flashiest prospect that you see come out of the high school ranks. It wasn't like he was 6'3", running a 10.6 in the 100-meter dash. Go turn on the high school cut up. This kid is polished. He is smooth. He is a hit pocket kind of defensive back, really, really sticky in man coverage. Has some nice length that he can use along the line of scrimmage. Hey, if he wants to play a little press man, he will eat your lunch at the line of scrimmage. He's a big, long, physical kid, but he's also really smooth. Can play a little bit in zone coverage. He was a technician coming out of high school. One of the more polished cornerbacks that was coming out of that 2025 class. So although he did not come in with the 5 stars next to his name, was only a mid 4-star prospect, this kid was a really, really good football player that was probably undervalued because he didn't have the crazy track and field times that some other guys do. I'm growing confidence that Courtland Guillory, whether he starts or not, can be a reliable piece for Oklahoma, the boundary cornerback room, which is big because that's really one of the only positions that we have concern about. Remaining questions. I got one on defense. PJ Adebawore, Danny Okoye, Marvin Jones Jr. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be the guy? Yeah, we know we have a dude in our Mason Thomas, and he's going to get the superstar treatment like he should, right? This is going to be a guy that's probably going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. Could have been a top 50 pick had he decided to leave last year. He's going to get tight ends chipping him. He's going to get some double teams. He's going to have running backs helping in the backfield as well in pass protection. That is going to give a monster, not to mention the guys they have on the inside. I think it might be the best interior defensive line unit that you see in the country. Who's going to win on the other side? There is going to be some really, really ideal matchups for whoever's rushing the passer on the other side, whether that's Marvin Jones Jr., whether that's PJ Adebawore, Danny Okoye, whoever it is. I'm still waiting to hear what player is emerging at that position. Our Mason Thomas going to get the superstar treatment. Yeah, whoever's playing on the other side is going to have the opportunity. We just need somebody to step up. We got a lot of capable and really talented bodies in that room. Who's it going to be? Who's going to take that job? Because that makes this Oklahoma's defense going to be good regardless. If you can have another difference maker emerge opposite our Mason Thomas, that's what takes this defense to the next level. That's what I'm looking for over the next couple of weeks of fall camp. We'll close it out there. It's super exciting fall camp session for Oklahoma rolling into 2025. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.